Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Sometimes I wonder where I would be and what money I would have had to spend if I didn't have an IT background, running a computer and a laptop and various software things that come up. If you remember a while ago, I had an issue with my computer that it just wouldn't load properly. It said there were files missing and all stuff like that, and I ended up reinstalling Windows completely from scratch, which, although it didn't lose my personal data, it lost all my software, and I had to go and buy my video editing software again because the version I bought was a download only that expired after a year. So I couldn't recreate that. I had to buy it. But because mine was an older version, it was dirt cheap, and I've got the disc this time. So, you know, it will never be that problem again. But there's quite a bit of useful software that just isn't there, and I thought, well, I'll download that as and when I need it. Most of it was freebie stuff anyway, and I thought, well, at the point I need it, I'll go and find it again. So I didn't just automatically go and get everything. But I must admit, they did give me a list of everything that had been removed to work from. That was nice. But anyway, ever since then, I've always had a problem when there's been a major update. It's just a niggle. They install all the stuff, you know, and then it says your computer needs a restart now. And I've always followed those instructions, and every single time I've had a major update, I've had issues where it says there's files missing and stuff like that. And the only way round it is to get a clean close down. And I mean, last time I had to go into safe mode to get the flipping thing to close down tidily. It just kept going round in a loop saying I can't perform these actions, there are files missing or corrupt, and I knew they weren't. So anyway, this time when it asked me to do a restart, I totally ignored it and closed the computer down, a full tidy close down. No issues whatsoever. So there's something not quite right with the restart function on my computer. Probably doesn't happen to anyone else. Anyway, so this time round it was a nice easy process. A little time consuming, but nonetheless all done and dusted. So that's the major update for the month. They seem to do a major cumulative update once a month at the beginning of the month. So that's that one done. There might be a few other tweaks that come along, but yeah, so for me, just removing that restart and doing a full close and then a clean open is fine. Yeah, silly little things, but they're just there to wind me up basically. But you know, I wonder what I'd have done. My computer was stuck last time this happened, and I'd have probably had to pay somebody quite a lot of money to sort that out for me if I couldn't do it myself. Anyway, done and dusted now. I've still got the laptop to do, but I don't use my laptop much. You know, that's a non-urgent thing. When I get round to turning the laptop on again, it will do the downloads and upgrade itself. That will be fine. But yeah, Windows is all very well, and certainly Windows 10 is the most stable platform I've ever had from Microsoft. But you know, I mean, there's probably still a few niggles there. There's probably still a few bugs, but they don't affect me. You know, I don't use every facility on there, and Windows 10 was designed really for touch screens. There's an awful lot of facilities available for those that have got touch screen and smart technology, which I don't have. You know, I use a mouse and a keyboard. It's what I've always done for 30 odd flipping years. Too old to change now, you know, old dog, new tricks, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, done and dusted. I put a little video up this morning about my Jenkins CI that was actually filmed yesterday, not today. This will be today's video. Nothing to do with orchids so far, you say? Anyway, a few things going on out here. Not a lot, so it's not going to be a long orchidy type video. My little Sarcochilus, thank you Lynn, been told off again about my pronunciation. All I've got to do to remember how to pronounce that is remember that somebody's name is in the middle of it. Yeah? But anyway, it's opening. That's what I meant to say. Not fully open yet. Delicate little blooms, and not that orchid-like. But I'll be interested to see what the full spike looks like. I mean, that's still quite a young plant, but nonetheless, opening. This Dendrobium phalaenopsis type, no ID, the white one, it's still not opening. It's taken its good time to actually fully open. But it's coming on, a lousy spike with only 2 blooms on, quite honestly. When these are grown well, the phalaenopsis types, the spikes can have dozens of blooms on, and sometimes multiple spikes per cane. I've never been able to grow them like that, I must admit. But all of my phalaenopsis type need a repot. But again, you know, I've got to follow my own rules. I'm waiting for new growths to start and the associated new roots. Otherwise they can just wait. But they've all been in their pots long enough, basically. When I did my talk, one of the first questions from somebody who always asks the question, it's funny, the person with the microphone said, oh, so-and-so's got a question, and I just said there and then, I'd be very surprised if he didn't. He normally asks it in the middle of the talk, but I managed to stop him doing that. Anyway, it was a perfectly valid question. He basically said, in your shots and your video clips, I see you use quite a lot of different pots. What was the reason behind that? And I said, well, it may have come over like that, but I don't really. I've only got 2 types of pots, the holy clay pots for the Cattleya types, and in one exception, I think there's one Oncidium type in there. So I use that, and apart from that, I use clear pots. And the reason I use clear pots is I like to see what's going on. The follow-up question was, I noticed quite a bit of algae in some of your pots. Do you find that a problem? I said, yes and no. It's unsightly, yes. But I live with it on the grounds that by the time it gets bad, it's time to repot anyway. So the whole root system's going to get a clean up and fresh media. So it doesn't stay there too long, if you see what I mean. And it does take a while to come round after, you know, after a new repot. You know, I mean, these are recent repots, no sign of any algae, and there won't be for at least a year. You know, it takes quite a while for it to get going. So that was my logic on pots. And why I use clear pots is just that. I like to see what's going on. Now, Paphiopedilum should be in dark pots, yeah? Well, I get round that by putting them in a clear pot so that I can see what's going on, and then putting that pot inside another pot. So I keep the root area dark, even though it's in a clear pot. Plus, as you all know, I've got a large percentage of orchids that are mounted that gets round that problem. You know, there's no pot. That's easy. This one is now fully open, I would say, so we can see its colour. And it is a lovely colour. It's very deep. It's a real deep, rich red. I haven't got any other Tulumnia like this one, I must admit. Unique in my collection to have such a deep colour. I wonder what colour changes are going to happen to this one. I've got a feeling that it's going to get an edging. It's going to develop an edging to it and not stay. Certainly in the picture, this sort of goldy greeny colour that you can just see on the tips here does actually show as an edging, which isn't there yet. Now it might be that it's just going to stay that colour, I don't know. This one certainly colour changes. Both of these are from the Christmas lot, as I call them. You know, they were given to me by, well, sold to me by a friend, and I got them at the Christmas too. So they're just called the Christmas lot, just so that I can differentiate in my mind between the ones I've had a lot longer, that's all. But this one's a nice colour changer. It opens almost white and then develops the pinky purpley tinge around the edge. It develops that after a few days. So this one's just opening here. There's far less pink showing on that. This one was the first one to open. So a lot of Tulumnias do colour change. Some get darker colours and some open dark and go lighter. But most of them have some sort of colour change during the, you know, their period of blooming. This little one over here, the Tulumnia peach, when this one opens, it's got no peach. It's virtually not there. It's just yellow and the deep red. and then the peachy colour, where it gets its name, develops over the first sort of week or so. So a lot of them do change colour as they age. And some other orchids do the same thing, I must admit. So, yeah. So, what have I got? I've got 4 Tolumnias at the moment, and well, up in that area there where some of the others are, you can see there's a lot of spikes sticking up. I'm going to have to watch them too, that they don't touch the roof. One of my Tolumnias with 2 nice spikes developing, when I watered that yesterday, it's got a 3rd spike coming. That'll be the first time I've ever had 3 spikes on a single plant at the same time. So they're obviously coming on nicely. So doing well with those. My Primulinum's looking good. Be interesting to see how long that actually lasts. And those were the sneaky buds on that little cane. The main blooming's down here on this cane. This was the cane that grew last year. That's where its main blooming's going to be. But it's, you know, it's going to look good when that cane opens. But nonetheless, that was the first of the resting type dendrobiums to actually open. So somebody has to be first, I suppose. And apart from that, there's nothing much going on. Probably going to do a bit more repotting today because I haven't got much to water. Mounts and Vanders were done. Holy clay pots are probably due tomorrow. But we're having duller, cooler weather now, so obviously pots are staying wet longer. This lot need doing today, what I call the shadier, cooler lot, even though strictly speaking the Paphiopedilums shouldn't be included in those. I think that's possibly because I only like the Paphiopedilums with the patterned leaves, so I'm not too keen on the plain leaf ones. A lot of those do grow a lot larger as well. So the patterned leaf ones tend to stay a bit more compact and take up less space, and they're attractive plants even when they're not in bloom, which is quite a long time for me. I don't grow them that well. It's funny actually, there was one of the comments was on about are they monopodial or sympodial, and I said, well, mine just as well be monopodial because they've only ever got 1 fan on them. But they're not, strictly speaking, they are sympodial. But yeah, I've got a couple of Restrepias to repot, at least 1 Masdevallia, so I've got some of these to repot. I may get on and do those because those are not, it's not critical the time of year with those, and as they continuously grow new growths and continually push out roots, the timing on those is far less important. But for me, I find it better to get on and do them earlier in the year so that they can settle down before it starts getting too warm in here too often. It allows them to settle in their new media. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do a move. I'm not so sure it's the best of ideas, but my Miltoniopsis, although they seem to be growing reasonable, I won't say brilliantly, but reasonable, I've got a feeling they could do with a bit more light. And that is probably one of the shadiest spots. 2 reasons. You've got that large piece of the door frame there which blocks out light. That's the first part to ever get the shade netting. Yeah, they are forward of the glass, so they're quite a long way from it, and they're heavily shaded by this shelf. Now, I've got a feeling they might do a bit better with a bit more light, but I've still got to keep them cool. But I do have cooler shelf space on the floor here. Well, that flipping giant Coelogene needs a repot as well. It's actually growing new growths. Now might be a good time to get on with that as well. That'll be a beast to repot. But yeah, I've got these lower shelves, and these, they just about are too tall to go on a single shelf, so they have to have what I call a shelf missing above them to get their height. But there's a vast amount of space down there. I think I might try moving them, give them a bit more light, just to see what happens, you know. I mean, if the leaves start turning quite pale, then they're obviously getting too much. They'll tell me, you know, so that would be good. And yeah, I don't think there were any other new blooms today. No. Oh, one thing I did spot. Oh, how much am I going to have to move to show you that? Just the hibiki with any luck. As I say, it's in a holy clay pot. They're not due to be watered today. I'm still going to call it Ivanagara Apple Blossom because I haven't learnt the new name yet, but its spike is now showing buds, and if each one of those parts of that spike is an actual bud, there's 6 or 7 buds there. If that's true, that's going to be a hell of a show. I think the most I've ever had is 3. So that looks like that might be. But then it did grow a massive pseudo bulb last year. That is the biggest, best bulb the plant's ever had. Just the one. Could do with several. But if the plant's gaining strength and growing bigger bulbs, maybe it'll split and do 2 leads. You never know. But anyway, if that is what I think it is, and all of those little bits of buds, that's going to be quite a show. It's one of my favourite Cattleya types. I'm probably going to do an update on the Cattleyas. 2 reasons, or Cattleya types. There aren't a vast quantity of them, but it's a good time of year to have a look at them. I mean, 3 are actually in bloom at the moment. This pretty little one here, it's the one with the really long name. It's almost a silly name, it's so long. Shinfong, Little Sun, Young Min, Golden Boy. Get much longer than that, do they? But this is the one that's doing something rather odd, because it grew its nice big growth round there, which is the one that's in bloom. It's just opening this bud. It's still got another bud to go, which I think is going to open. It's not going to blast. But then it pushed out round the back of the plant these 2 tiny little pseudo bulbs, and they've got buds on as well. Is that one? Yeah, that one's got buds in. It's just splitting round the back, just showing. So, you know, that's going to extend the blooming period on that one. And the other 2 open up here are the big bright orange one and the blousy one. I mean, this is just a no ID, but it's got lovely delicate patterning on it. And it has a slight fragrance. This one has virtually no fragrance. But it makes up for it in the number of blooms. I've got an orchid show next Saturday. Wessex Orchid Society have got their spring show next Saturday, so I shall be off to that all day long, and I'll certainly film that show because it's their competitive show. So there will be everybody's like best plants will be on display, so that will make some good filming, and I'll get that done, and hopefully I get some more moss. This is what used up my moss basically, because I had to line this and then put media in the middle of it. Otherwise the slats are just too big on these pots. I like them, but they are a bit big. And I had to think, my Coelogene cristata, which is it's buried up the back there on the floor, that would probably do a lot better in this style pot, because they're shallow rooters, but they ramble, they spread out into a large flat plant, which is, these trays lend themselves to that sort of thing. So all 3 of my Coelogenes will get repotted in the near future. I've got a feeling my cristata might be going to bloom. I think it looks like there's some spikes on that, in which case it can wait for its repot until after that, rather than do it before. Well, I'll have a think. I might do it before. I've never found that repotting disturbs the growth of spikes. It can mess up some buds, certainly on Phalaenopsis. If you've got a spike that's got buds getting up to not far off opening, and then they obviously tail off towards the end of the spike to much, much smaller buds, if you disturb them while they're in that state, you will often get some bud blast. But I've never had that happen on any other type of orchid, just on those. And then I haven't got many of those, so I don't count that as mattering that much. This one's, this is my Dendrobium Stardust Firebird, literally the Kiki machine. And in fact, my plants I got rid of. So this is the one that came out of the big box from Beatrix, that has grown on, and it's got quite a few spikes on it. Now, as soon as I saw those, I thought, here we go again, Kikis, but it's actually going to bloom. So that'd be a nice splash of orange as well. They're lovely blooms, but I don't find it the easiest dendrobium to grow well. It's one of those hybrids. It's classed as a nobile type, but it isn't really. although it has to go into one sort of type, I suppose. But it's got such a small percentage of nobile in it. It's got more unicum than anything else, which is where it gets its colour, patterning and shape from. But there is a little bit of nobile in there, but not a lot. So I wouldn't actually call it a nobile type personally. I don't know what else to call it, apart from a kiki machine, or that's what it has been in the past anyway. But this time, it looks like we're going to have some blooms. Late flipping time too. But, you know, it grew a couple of canes last year. It wasn't much of a plant when it came out of the big box. In fact, I think that one fell straight out of its pot and got plonked back in again and left like that for a while, and then actually got potted up properly. But it's coming on. I think my zygo's going to go soon. But at least I got a spike. That desperately needs repotting. That's it, getting in a bad way. If I let it go too far, then I'm going to struggle with that one. And what else? Up the back there, the first one of the big bush blooms is about to open. I don't know whether I very rarely use my zoom. It usually goes out of focus. So that's the first of the big bush buds that's probably going to open over the next few days. That'll be the first of many. It's a lovely yellow, waxy bloom, very attractive, and honey fragrance. Not strong, you do have to get quite close, but lovely fragrance on that. And there's loads of them. Everywhere you look on the big bush where there's a bit of bare cane, there's spikes coming out. And some of the spikes, ow, that just hit me head on Canuco. Some of the spikes have actually got 2 buds this time round. Well, that certainly didn't happen last year. They were all single buds. And most of them this time are probably going to be single buds, but there are some that are doubling up. So 2 buds on a spike. But there's loads on there. Everywhere you look, you keep sitting, you know, it's one of those, the more you look, the more you see. They're coming out all over the place. So it's going to be a good blooming. And I must admit, I'm sure that plant's going to be so much happier up there in the bright light. And out of my way. It's out from under my feet. So, you know, I'm sure it's just going to do better up there. So that'll be good. But yeah, I think I'll do a Cattleya update. And the 2 reasons are, there's things going on to look at. And in some cases things not going on, so it might be worth having a chat why I think things are not going on. But it's also a nice update for Beatrix, because a lot of my Cattleyas came either out of the big box or from Big Box Junior, which was another present from Beatrix for looking after all of her original plants out of the big box. So that'll be a nice update for Beatrix to see what's going on. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday morning chat day. And so probably next week, and the last one of my first round of Project Orchid updates will get done during next week as well. That's the cooler, shadier type, so I'll get onto that. That finishes those project updates, part 4, and then I won't be doing those again probably until beginning of May, something like that, when we'll have a look at what should be a lot more progress, because obviously the first round of updates was, have they survived the winter? Whereas the next round of updates should show some considerable progress, because they'll be well into the growing season by then. So we'll have another look then. And the idea with the Project Orchids is each time I do an update, I will compare with the previous update. But when we get to the end of the year, I'll compare with the first lot of videos that I did. So the stills I took in December will be used to compare when we get to November, December. So that will be like a comparison to see what's happened over a whole year, which could be quite interesting. Same format, you know, a still at the time followed by the video as is now. So that will be quite good. What else? Nothing much else. I ought to review the grow lights, but I don't know what to say, because I don't really know if they've really done any good. It's so difficult to tell, you know, because I've got a lot of natural light in here anyway. And the idea with my use of them was just to extend the day length, you know, and stop them slowing down so much. But it's difficult to remember how much they slowed down from a year ago So it's very difficult to do a valid review on those lights. But certainly when I get round to that time of year next year, I'm going to try and arrange them a bit better so that they are a bit closer to more of the plants. I mean, having them on this back wall, lighting up these plants over here, you know, you're looking at the lights are sort of 5 to 6 feet away from the plants, and the recommended distance is 1 metre. Although I think Rachel had a little bit of trouble being that close to the plants. They are very, very intense lights. I would probably say a 4 foot minimum, or 1.33 meters, something like that. But mine were probably a little too far away to do a huge amount of good, but they must have done some good. Some light is better than no light at all, which is what they had before. So that's about the most I can say about those. I know Rachel set her set of plants up in an area that got no natural light, so you know she can do a much better review, providing again that she can remember how well the plants did without the lights. You know, that's the problem. This is trying to remember what happened a year ago. It's not that easy. Anyway, that'll do for today, and I'll see you for tomorrow's chat, which at the moment I haven't got a clue what that's going to be about. But bearing in mind this was a random chat and a look at some blooms, I'll think of something, I'm sure, when I've had a few coffees and a few yawns and a few stretches and managed to get myself going. Then we'll see what we can come up with. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for dropping by.